I'm declaring my 2026 breakout player for every position right now.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes. I'm Joe Marino, and today's episode is brought to you by Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try it for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. On today's episode, I am your solo host as we take a quick break from our divisional preview series. We'll finish up next week, but have some scheduling dynamics with me actually being on vacation. And so we're going to have a different looking week for you this week, but get back on track with the divisional previews next week. And so for today, no Kyle Krabs, but I'm here and I want to have some fun. I want to declare my breakout player for every position in the NFL. So we'll do the defensive back seven in segment 3. Segment 2 will be the trenches, but we start with the offensive skill positions. And I'll give you my pick. And then I do have one honorable mention for each position. And look, I really want to focus in on true breakout players. So when I get to tight end and I don't pick Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, that's because I think they already broke out. So I did my best here to make sure these were true breakout players. Let's start with the quarterback position, because where else can you possibly start than at quarterback? Some good young quarterbacks in the league, but the guy that I find myself most excited for this year is Cam Ward with the Tennessee Titans. I just did not like the idea of him pairing with Brian Callahan with that supporting cast. Brian Callahan, West Coast offense, precision, timing, route depth. That is just not Cam Ward. Cam Ward is a dynamic playmaker. He has size and athleticism and arm talent. He's not going to color between the lines all the time like Brian Callahan's going to prefer. And the offensive coordinator hire of Brian Daboll, I think, is just tremendous for Cam Ward. Brian Daboll obviously has a proven track record for simplifying things for dynamic quarterbacks, like he did with Jackson Dart, like he did with Josh Allen. I mean, even Daniel Jones had some good ball. His first season was good ball under Brian Daboll. And I think Brian Daboll will strike the right blend of letting Cam be Cam, but also give him some tough coaching. This is nothing new for Brian Daboll. So I love that coordinator quarterback pair. I love Cam Ward's skill set. I like his makeup. And I like how they've improved his supporting cast. I mean, Carnell Tate added to the mix at receiver, in addition to Wan'Dale Robinson, kind of a true slot type player. I have some questions about the offensive line, but I think there's enough of an upgrade with pass catchers and coaching that leads me to believe that Cam Ward will take a major step forward and be a breakout player this season. He had some really high-level moments last year that we can't overlook. So Cam Ward, my breakout quarterback. My honorable mention, and I think he'd have been a great choice for the breakout quarterback, is Tyler Shough with the New Orleans Saints. And my goodness, his stretch of play last year was certainly the best of any rookie quarterback. Comparing him to Cam Ward and Jackson Dart, they've all had their moments, but I thought Tyler Shough's consistency with what he showed for several weeks was really good. And another young quarterback that has received a nice upgrade with the receiver core with Jordan Tyson, a top 10 pick. They solidified the offensive line with David Edwards. I got a lot of belief in Kellen Moore. But Tyler Shough showed us so much last year, and I think he'll build upon that. Part of my reason why I didn't pick Tyler Shough is because I think you make a case that his stretch of play was a bit of a breakout where we saw some highs from Cam Ward, but it was really, really high variance. So Cam Ward, Tyler Shough, my choices. Let's go to the running back position. My pick for breakout running back is Bhayshul Tuten with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Anytime that you see the very natural succession plan play out, I think that is where the signals go off that you're going to get a breakout opportunity here. And Travis Etienne, now with the New Orleans Saints, not in the mix here anymore, right? There's just a wide open path for Bhayshul Tuten to touch the football a ton. And the only thing that they did at the running back position was sign Chris Rodriguez. And with all due respect to Chris Rodriguez, that's not a meaningful enough move for me to be concerned that Bhayshul Tuten's not going to push for 250 to 300 touches this year. And he's electric, right? An explosive player. I think about Liam Cohen, a heck of an offensive mind, and think a little bit about, of course, what he did with Travis Etienne last year, but even Bucky Irving in Tampa Bay. I mean, Tuten's a souped up version of Bucky Irving. Now, he just got to make sure he doesn't fumble the football, but I think there's a clear path for a ton of opportunity for Bhayshul Tuten. I think the moves that they didn't make suggest that there's a lot of belief in him, and I have a lot of faith in Liam Collins. So Bhayshul Tuten, my choice for running back. Now, my honorable mention at running back, maybe you're going to say, Joe, he broke out. Well, I don't know. Quinshon Judkins with the Browns is where I want to go with this. I know that he had a lot of volume, and he showed a really good skill set last year, but the efficiency wasn't really there. And I don't think that's because of Quinshon Judkins. I mean, that offensive line was a mess. They transitioned away from the whole thing. There's much better receivers now in place with who they drafted in Cleveland. Now, I don't know about their quarterback situation. That's not a good deal, right? But I think the offensive line upgrades are obvious. I mean, you probably make a case that the Cleveland Browns offensive line might be the most upgraded unit of any unit across the league year over year. The beneficiary of that is Quinshon Judkins. I'm expecting big things. The skill set that he showcased last year was really exciting. At wide receiver, my choice here is Jayden Higgins with the Houston Texans. Love the skill set. And I love how, as last year moved along, you saw Jayden Higgins' opportunities increase and the intent to get to him the football as like a first read in progressions really, really upticked. And, man, he's got size and he's got really good route running for his size. I love how he competes at the catch point to get leverage and fight for the football. He owns that airspace. And I think with Nico Collins as his running mate, who already has a lot of gravitational pull, I think that frees up a lot of great opportunities for Jayden Higgins to get chances to catch the football and make plays. I'm expecting big things from Higgins in 2026. The other player here, of course, I have my honorable mention for the receiver position. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. Don't sleep on him. The skill set's really outstanding. It's not hard to understand that he's got a great skill set. I think that the circumstances in Arizona have just not been very favorable for him. Look at their quarterback situation. Jacoby Brissett, Kyler Murray. Those aren't players that are going to really maximize the receiving talent of a Marvin Harrison, who's had his own injuries, and obviously expectations were so high. And he earned those, right, with how he performed at Ohio State, with the pedigree, being Marvin Harrison's son. I get it. But I think he's fallen short of that to this point. But I think it comes together here in year 3. Of course, what they have in Trey McBride and how Michael Wilson emerged, I think helps. I think having Jeremiah Love at running back helps. I think you'll see the reason why Marvin Harrison was such a high pick for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, look, the quarterback situation, I'm certainly nervous about it. And I certainly believe that Trey McBride's still going to get his. But I think the conversation around Marvin Harrison changes this year for the Cardinals. All right, coming up next, we're going to get into the trenches, and we'll include tight end in that conversation. We'll do that actually first after the break. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting, from the opening whistle to the final kick. Now, FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with every goal pays. You bet on a match, and you'll get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals means more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. I'd be looking for those matchups where both teams are aggressively pursuing offense, and because those are the games that can really open up fast. The more chances being created, the more exciting the match becomes from beginning to end, and now you get to benefit from each goal scored. Talk about making the World Cup even more exciting. You want to get some props in on the game, but then for every goal scored, you get a bonus bet. I love it. So check it out. From the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. All right, folks, welcome back. I'm your solo host today, and I'm going through my breakout player for each position in 2026. We've done quarterback, running back, receiver. Now we're going to get into the trenches and include the tight ends in that conversation. And at tight end, my pick is Greg Dulcich with the Miami Dolphins. It's a good thing Kyle's not here. We don't want him getting all happy about this, but no, I like Greg Dulcich, and certainly that goes back to his time at UCLA, that last season he had. And then really he was pretty exciting with Denver, and they just couldn't get through the hamstring problems. But he's now part of this Miami Dolphins team where he had some production last season. I know there's a lot of turnover in Miami, but Bobby Slowick, who was part of that offensive coaching staff last year, is now the offensive coordinator. So there is some familiarity with Greg Dulcich and his skill set. And there is just such a wide open path to targets for him. Just with all due respect, the Dolphins don't have much going for them when it comes to receivers and tight ends. They have some young players, a lot of rookies. There's some ceiling, right? But ultimately, not much in the way of established commodities. I think Greg Dulcich becomes a player Malik Willis is looking for a lot. I mean, he could really command way more targets than people are expecting. If he could stay healthy, I mean, could Greg Dulcich push for 90 to 110 targets? Like, maybe that sounds crazy, but someone's got to catch the ball. And I think Greg Dulcich has a very interesting skill set, really dynamic receiver, has yards after catch talent. And I think Malik Willis is going to try to keep this offense on schedule. And Greg Dulcich is, might be the best thing he has to throw the football to. And so I'm expecting a lot from Greg Dulcich this year. My honorable mention at tight end is Rodney Gadsden with the Chargers. And maybe you're thinking he broke out last year. I don't know. He probably had a couple of games, right, where the production was just really, really big. And then otherwise he was kind of quiet. But I just feel like Mike McDaniel is going to love working with Rodney Gadsden. And you think about Darren Waller, right? And as odd as that was last year for the Dolphins to bring in Darren Waller and for Darren Waller to want to be part of the Dolphins, I think it does say something about Mike McDaniel's desire for that type of a skill set and Darren Waller wanting to work with Mike McDaniel. I don't think Darren Waller was just going to play for anyone. I think it was a situation that appealed to him. And Rodney Gadsden is obviously not proven to be Darren Waller, but I think there's some parallels to the skill sets that you can talk yourself into there being a lot of intrigue. And so I think we're all fascinated to see what this Chargers offense looks like with Mike McDaniel and, a lot of young, physically gifted skill players, right? And I think Rodney Gadsden is going to wind up being a priority for them to get the ball to. I'm expecting a big year. All right, let's go to the offensive line. I'll pick one offensive lineman and, of course, an honorable mention. My pick for a breakout offensive lineman is Jalen Sundell with the Seattle Seahawks. I remember last year getting ready for the 2025 season and thinking about Seattle and, what their potential was. And I found myself pretty concerned about their interior offensive line. They were starting a rookie in Gray Zabel at left guard, Anthony Bradford, who had, been pretty disappointing as the right guard. And then you're like, who's this guy that's going to play center? Jalen Sundell. Who is he? Is this a serious group? Well, it is. And they won a Super Bowl with it. And Jalen Sundell was a big part of what that offense became in terms of a very efficient offense and a lot of play action and a lot of commitment to running the football. And I thought Sundell was just terrific in the Super Bowl. That was a game where, obviously a showcase game if there ever was one, the Super Bowl, but I'm dialed in on watching him against those Patriots interior defensive linemen, and he was handling it. They were trying to confuse it, and he was handling it. And so maybe by the end of the year, most people thought, well, yeah, Jalen Sundell's the answer for Seattle at center. But I think he becomes a household name. And as a guy that's ready for a contract extension, I think people are going to be surprised when they see those numbers come through, because he is posturing for a really healthy deal as one of the best young centers in the game. My honorable mention for the offensive line is another Dolphin. It's Jonas Savianaya, their guard that they picked last year in the second round, traded up for him, if I'm not mistaken, and really struggled as a rookie. And, look, I think it's hard enough to step into the NFL and be a day one starter as a rookie. It's probably even more difficult when you have the environment that existed in Miami last year. It's not really conducive to being the best version of yourself as a rookie. And of course, he was playing on the left side, which is not where he played in college. And I really liked him in college. And I think now with a year to on board, right, he certainly failed quite a bit. I think he is positioned not only from the ecosystem being more favorable, but now he's going to be on the right side, which is where he was stationed in college, which I think will get him into more of his natural movement patterns and muscle memory for technique. So I think the good news, I guess the good and the bad news, is that he sets a pretty low bar based on where he was last year, but I think he takes a major step forward, and we go from, oh no, is that a busted pick, to, oh yeah, I think we have an answer here by the end of the season. All right, let's go to the defense. We'll go to the interior defensive line. My pick for breakout player is Alfred Collins of the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco is really young at defensive tackle. Now, they traded for Osa Odighizuwa, which I think is really helpful. But there's one thing that Osa Odighizuwa doesn't necessarily really help them with, and that's run defense. That's what Alfred Collins was drafted to do, clog up the middle. And I think we've seen the 49ers through the years struggle with those powerful downhill rushing attacks. And Alfred Collins is a player that you look at as somebody who was drafted to come in and help neutralize that. And, I think he had plenty of highs and lows as a rookie. But I've found interior defensive line to be one of the slowest developing positions in the NFL. I think it's just so much different, not only from a technique perspective to win, right, and to beat blocks in the NFL compared to college, but just the processing and how much demand it puts on you as an interior defensive lineman to respond and have your feet and hands and body in the right places. And I think with a year under his belt, he'll be able to apply so much from last year into this coming season and pair well with Osa Odighizuwa. And look, I mean, they're really young. It's CJ West, a year two player, Grayson Halton, another rookie. When you look at their top four on the inside, I think there's a lot of belief. And Alfred Collins, and my goodness, they need him to be a guy that really eats up that middle and helps them become a more stout run defense. And I think he'll do it. My honorable mention is going to be Tyleik Williams with the Detroit Lions. First round pick, obviously, last year. And he was with Aleem McNeil, and he was with DJ Reader. Of course, DJ Reader is now gone. Roy Lopez was part of that mix. Roy Lopez is now gone. And so when we talked about succession plans with the running back thing in Bhayshul Tuten in segment one. Well, you draft the first round defensive tackle, and then you don't retain DJ Reader or Roy Lopez. You wanted this to happen, and then you saw enough last year to feel confident that it's the right plan. And here's Tyleik Williams with a big opportunity. And I like Tyleik Williams. I think he got better and better as the season moved along. But part of where I really get excited about Tyleik Williams is Aleem McNeil and him being further removed from the injury. He looked like a shell of himself last year, but as you get further removed from injuries, you start to find yourself, you start to become more confident. And if Aleem McNeil can be Aleem McNeil, that only benefits Tyleik Williams, who I think is a bright young player to begin with. So a lot of questions with some of that transition in Detroit, but I think Tyleik Williams ultimately allows that to work out. All right, let's go to the edge rusher position. My pick for breakout player is Donovan Ezeiruaku with the Dallas Cowboys. He looks like he's going to be a steal. And his pressure numbers were pretty good last year. The sack production the pressure rate was not super good for him. But I think that starts to change this coming season. I liked some of the reinforcements that they were able to find on the overall defense, but in particular with the front. They bring in a Rashawn Gary. They draft the Malachi Lawrence. And I think Donovan Ezeiruaku just becomes part of that group of players that are young and have a lot of upside in Dallas. And I think he's a really complete edge rusher. Now he's not super big, but he's bursty. He's long. He's got a lot of different ways that he can beat blocks. And I think with a season under his belt, he's positioned in year 2 to really emerge and take a step. My honorable mention for edge rusher is another second-year player, and that is Josiah Stewart with the Los Angeles Rams. I know all the rage is Myles Garrett, and they have another good player in Byron Young, but I feel like there's going to be snaps for Josiah Stewart, who is versatile, who's got a crazy hot motor, and with the amount of attention that Myles Garrett is going to draw, I mean, that only benefits a Josiah Stewart and a Byron Young and a Kobe Turner and a Braden Fisk. I think that Josiah Stewart is well positioned as kind of that third edge rusher to make a lot of impact. And I liked him a ton at Michigan State. He showed us a lot as a rookie, and I think he builds upon that in year 2. All right, coming up next, the defensive back 7, linebacker, corner, and safety. And I got some young players here, but there's a guy that's a little older that I think is ready to break out. I'll tell you who that is here next, folks. Be sure to stick with me. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales. Somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working toward the same goal, and that's true in sports just like it is in business. One thing that really stood out to me about the Bills is how they got everyone pulling in the same direction when they drafted Josh Allen. It wasn't just one great player or coach. It was a coordinated effort across the entire organization that made it successful. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try it for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. All right, folks, welcome back. We're continuing to declare breakout players for 2026. We got 3 positions left: linebacker, corner, and safety. And linebacker meaning off-ball linebacker. My pick there is Justin Sternad of the Denver Broncos. Look, he's been a piece, right, for Denver, kind of that third linebacker, blitzing, situational type stuff. When there's been injuries, he's gotten a chance to play. But they made some choices this year at linebacker. And, of course, part of that was moving on from Dre Greenlaw. And I think part of their belief in that being successful was what they have in Justin Sternad, who's been part of that team for several years. But we've yet to see him as like truly a full-time, all the snaps player. And I think that he will be a really good playmaker for them. And you certainly like the sum of all the parts of this Denver defense. It's a great roster. They've got really impact players at all positions. And I think Justin Sternad just kind of fits into it and feeds off of a lot of really good players and winds up making a lot of plays. And it goes from, hey, he's been a good depth piece, occasional starter, to, oh, yeah, this is a guy that's going to be an answer for us for the next several seasons. My honorable mention, and look, I really didn't want to pick rookies, but I had to at linebacker because I think the world of Sonny Styles. I think the world of him. My number 1 player in the draft, that just happened, and he goes to Washington, and there's a lot of improvements to that Washington defense, but I don't know how you don't think about Dan Quinn and his history with Bobby Wagner and not find yourself uber excited about him pairing with Sonny Styles and what that's going to look like. You know, you watch Ohio State defensive tape last year, and it's almost like it's just a Sonny Styles highlight reel, but it's not. It's just every play he matters. Super good player, no limitations. I think he's going to be awesome right away for Washington. Let's get to the secondary. At corner, my choice is Noel Williams with the Chiefs. Got some run last year, looked good. And, I mean, you don't trade away Trent McDuffie and let Jalen Watson walk in free agency if you didn't feel good about what you had in Noel Williams. Now, of course, they wind up drafting Mansour Delane, the top corner in the draft, in the top 10. And that's great. But Noel Williams just kind of fits the bill for the Steve Spagnuolo ball skills, versatile coverage player. I think he's going to be terrific for the Kansas City Chiefs this coming season. And that's what they do. They're a factory with defensive backs. They hire and fire. And right now, Noel Williams is hired, and I think his ball hawking ability is really exciting. My honorable mention is Quincy Riley. Kind of a similar situation where good-looking rookie, you know, going to be the full-time guy, undisputed, entering this coming season. I thought he showed a lot. I think that defense has a lot of good young players. And I know they're counting on him, right? They've had some transition at the corner position, and I think a lot of that is going to be okay because of what they have in Quincy Riley as my honorable mention in New Orleans. At safety, we're going to keep it with the Saints. Jonas Sanker. Oh my goodness. He looked good last year as a rookie, and, pairing with Justin Reed, and the ball skills are really intriguing. The instincts are really intriguing. He's versatile. You can line him up. He's interchangeable. And, I think the Saints have a couple of really exciting young pieces in that secondary in Riley and Sanker to go with some veterans. It's going to be Kool-Aid McKinstry looks pretty good. I don't know if they have a ton of depth in New Orleans, but there's some starting players that are young and intriguing. I mean, left tackle Kelvin Banks, Olave, there's Shough. There's some things brewing with the Saints. My honorable mention is Malachi Starks with the Ravens. Thought a ton of him as a prospect, and now he's, really obviously a huge part of where they're going with the secondary. But Jesse Minter and his pedigree and what he's proven as a coach, and I think him aligning with Malachi Starks, who's got a lot of versatility, will position Malachi to be the best version of himself, and you can really accentuate the playmaking that we saw from him at Georgia. So there you have it, folks. My breakout player and honorable mention for every position. What do you agree with? What do you not agree with? Who should I have picked? Let me know in the YouTube comments. And thanks for being here. We're going to have, like I said, a different week this week. I'm soloing today. You'll get a solo podcast from Kyle later on. We'll be back later in the week together for a collaborative episode that'll be takes on takes. And then we'll pick up and finish the divisional previews next week. I think our last division is the AFC South. And then from there, we get to have all the fun conversations about quarterbacks and coaching staffs. And as we really just peel away the days waiting for a training camp in this season to get started. So make sure you don't miss anything. Make sure you come on back. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.